All right, breaking news. We just acquired texts between JD Vance and Pete Hegseth about top secret war plans, and these texts were not supposed to leak. This story perfectly highlights the carelessness, incompetence, the recklessness of the current administration because they accidentally included a top journalist in a group chat, and in this group chat, they began to text about their war plans. It's so incredibly insecure, it's almost laughable, but it's not laughable. It's actually pretty scary. But let me remind you very quickly, Republicans and MAGA Republicans almost exploded when the Biden administration accidentally posted a photo of IDF soldiers and didn't blur their faces because apparently it was supposed to be top secret, yet the Trump admin, which, keep in mind, Donald Trump himself has shared top secret intel and said, while doing it, I'm not supposed to be showing you this. The Trump admin is currently texting about war plans in a group chat with a journalist. So really quickly, this says breaking. The Trump admin accidentally texted a journalist, Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic, their top secret war plans on Yemen. Texts are below between Vance and Hegseth, in which the journalist was included. Imagine if Biden did this. So incompetent, so reckless. And again, imagine if Biden did this. Biden did something that was 10 degrees less bad, and they still skewered him for it. Yet this won't even last a news cycle because MAGA propaganda is so strong. But that's where we come in. We push back, we spread the facts. All that I ask from you is to scroll down, drop a like, drop some blue hearts. And here's the article. It says, the Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans, written by Jeffrey Goldberg, the journalist, the dude who was in the group chat. U.S. national security leaders included me in a group chat about upcoming military strikes in Yemen. I didn't think it could be real. Then the bombs started falling. What the hell? They literally accidentally included somebody in a top secret group chat. And we'll go over the text in 1 second, but I think the context here is important. So this says, the world found out shortly before 2 p.m. Eastern Time on March 15th that the United States was bombing Houthi targets across Yemen. I, however, knew 2 hours before the first bombs exploded that the attack might be coming. The reason I knew this is that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, had texted me the war plan at 11:44 a.m. The plan included precise information about weapons packages, targets, and timing. I mean, just think about the implications of this. If they had added somebody even slightly more hostile to the United States, thank God it was just Jeffrey Goldberg, who still is loyal to the United States. Imagine accidentally texting Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens or one of the crazy people that I'm sure Pete Hegseth has in his phone, and then Tucker Carlson leaks that intel to one of his foreign buddies, and then the Houthi targets know, and that is an American operation blown up. That's resources wasted. That's lives put at risk, all because Pete Hegseth is an absolute idiot. Okay, now this article is long, but I do find it incredibly interesting. Make sure you watch until the end. It says, this is going to require some explaining. So first, he explains how the Houthis are an Iranian-backed terrorist group whose motto is God is great, death to America, death to Israel, curse the Jews, victory to Islam. And they launched attacks on Israel and international trade. The Biden administration was seen as ineffective in countering these Houthi attacks, but they did try to respond. That's where Pete Hegseth and Jeffrey Goldberg, the journalist, come in. On March 11th, he received a connection request on Signal from a user identified as Mike Walls. Signal is, a group chat messenger where it's open source, but it's also encrypted. Jeffrey Goldberg assumed that the Michael Walls in question was Donald Trump's national security advisor. He did not assume, however, that the request was from the actual Michael Walls. I have met him in the past, writes Goldberg, and though I didn't find it particularly strange that he might be reaching out to me, I did think it somewhat unusual, given the Trump admin's contentious relationship with journalists, especially from The Atlantic, right? And Trump's periodic fixation on attacking this journalist in particular, Jeffrey Goldberg. It immediately crossed my mind that someone could be masquerading as Waltz in order to somehow entrap me. It's not uncommon these days to experience nefarious actors. He said he accepted the request, hoping it was the actual dude and he wanted to chat about Ukraine. 2 days later, he received a notice that he was included in a Signal group chat called Houthi PC Small Group. A message to the group from Mike Walls read as follows: Team, establishing a principals group for coordination on Houthis, particularly for over the next 72 hours. My deputy, Alex Wong, is pulling together a Tiger team at deputies agency's chief of staff level following up the meeting from the sit room. So it's just like, You know, maybe there are benefits to having a steady-handed president and admin at the wheel. Yes, Biden was old, but the Biden admin wasn't leaking stuff from group chats to journalists, which is absolutely insane. Now let's go through and read some of these texts. I mean, he does write a lot. He says he had very strong doubts this group chat was real because he could not believe the national security leadership of the United States would communicate on Signal about imminent war plans and then leak it to a journalist. He then says, I also could not believe that the national security advisor to the president would be so reckless as to include the editor-in-chief to The Atlantic in such discussions with senior U.S. officials up to and including the vice president. The next day, things got even stranger. At 8:05 a.m. on Friday, March 14th, Michael Waltz, the National Security Advisor, texted the group chat, Team, you should have a statement of conclusions with taskings per the President's guidance this morning in your high side inboxes. High side, in government parlance, refers to classified computer and communication systems. The Vance account then goes on to make a noteworthy statement, considering that the Vice President has not deviated publicly from Trump's position on virtually any issue. Quote, I am not sure the President is aware how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. There's a further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. I am willing to support the consensus of the team and keep these concerns to myself, but there is a strong argument for delaying this a month, doing the messaging work on why this matters, seeing where the economy is, etc. JD Vance is pushing back on Trump behind closed doors. Holy shit. And by the way, there was a video going around of JD Vance talking about Elon Musk. That was fake. Don't argue. It was an AI video. It was confirmed as AI by multiple organizations, by multiple sources. It was just not real. But this is real. These texts are real. I mean, let's scroll down and read some of them. JD Vance said, at Pete Hegseth, if you think we should do it again, or if you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again. Let's just make sure our messaging is tight here. And if there are things we can do up front to minimize risk to Saudi oil facilities, we should do it. And I just find this wild because if I scroll back up a little bit, JD Vance said, literally, team, I am out for the day doing an economic event in Michigan, but I think we are making a mistake. And then that's when he went into the, I'm not sure the president is aware, blah, blah, blah. But let's keep reading these texts down here. I find this interesting. Pete Hegseth said, VP, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic, but Mike is correct. We are the only ones on the planet, on our side of the ledger, who can do this. Nobody else even close. Question is timing. I feel like now is as good as any time as any, now is as good as a time as any, given POTUS directive to reopen shipping lanes. I think we should go, but POTUS still retains 24 hours of decision space. So these dudes genuinely hate and loathe Europe in the EU. It's not just an act to negotiate. They genuinely think they are bad partners. And then SM says, as I heard it, the president was clear, green light, but we soon make clear to Egypt and Europe what we expect in return. We also need to figure out how to enforce such a requirement. Like, if Europe doesn't remunerate, then what? If the US successfully restores freedom of navigation at great cost, there needs to be some further economic gain extracted in return. Hegseth says, agree. That message from SM, presumably President Trump's confidant, Stephen Miller, the deputy White House chief of staff, or someone playing Stephen Miller, effectively shut down the conversation. The last text of the day came from Pete Hegseth, who wrote at 9:46, agree. After reading this chain, I recognize that this conversation possessed a high degree of verisimilitude. The texts, in their word choice and arguments, sounded as if they were written by the people who purportedly sent them, or by a particularly adept AI text generator posing as the people who sent them. I was still concerned that this could be a disinformation operation, or a simulation of some sort, and I remained mystified that no one in the group seemed to have noticed my presence. But if it was a hoax, the quality of mimicry and the level of foreign policy insight was impressive. Then the next day, Saturday, March 15th, the story truly became bizarre. At 11:44 a.m., the account labeled Pete Hegseth posted a Signal, quote, team update. I will not quote from this update or from certain other subsequent texts. The information contained in them, if they had been read by an adversary of the United States, could conceivably have been used to harm American military and intelligence personnel, particularly in the broader Middle East, Central Command's area of responsibility. Listen to that. The Trump texts leaking could have harmed American military and intelligence personnel. What I will say, writes Jeffrey Goldberg, in order to illustrate the shocking recklessness of this signal conversation, is that the Hegseth post contained operational details of forthcoming strikes on Yemen, including information about targets, weapons the US would be deploying, and attack sequencing. The only person to reply to the update from Hegseth was the person identified as the vice president. I will say a prayer for victory, Vance wrote. 2 other users subsequently added prayer emoji. This is what happens when you hire people off the TV. Trump plucked people off the TV, and now they're operating highly secure operations behind the scenes. According to a lengthy Hegseth text, the first detonations in Yemen would be felt 2 hours hence at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Time. So I waited in my car in a supermarket parking lot. If this signal chat was real, I reasoned, Houthi targets would soon be bombed. At about 1:55, I checked X and searched Yemen. Explosions were then being heard across Sana'a, the capital city. I went back to the signal channel at 1:48. Michael Waltz had provided the group an update. Again, I won't quote from this text except to note that he described the operation as a, quote, amazing job. A few minutes later, John Ratcliffe wrote, a good start. Not long after, Waltz responded with 3 emojis, a fist, an American flag, and fire. Others soon joined in, including Mar, who wrote, good job, Pete, and your team, and Susie Wiles, who texted, kudos to all, most particularly those in theater and Centicom. Really great. God bless. Steve Witkoff responded with 5 emojis, 2 hands praying, a flexed bicep, and 2 American flags. TG responded, great work in effects. The after-action discussion included assessments of damage done, including the likely death of a specified individual. And here we see the text. Absolutely effing wild. Effing wild that our government is this reckless. This incredibly reckless. And then on Sunday, Waltz appeared on ABC's This Week and contrasted the strikes with the Biden admin's more hesitant approach. These were not kind, blah, blah, blah. The Signal group chat, he then concluded, the author, was almost certainly real. Having come to that realization, one that seemed nearly impossible in the hours before, he left the Signal group chat, understanding that this would trigger an automatic notification to the group's creator, quote, Michael Waltz, that he had left. No one in the group chat had seemed to notice he was there, and I received no subsequent questions about why I left or who he was. Earlier today, this is where it gets wild. It's been wild. This is where it gets even more wild. He emailed Waltz and sent him a message on his Signal account. He also wrote to Pete Hegseth, John Ratcliffe, Tulsi Gabbard, and other officials. In an email, he outlined some questions. Quote, is a Houthi PC small group a genuine Signal thread? Did they know he was included in the group? Was he, on the off chance, included on purpose? If not, who did they think he was? Did anyone realize who he was when he was added or when he removed myself from the group? Do senior Trump admin officials use Signal regularly for sensitive discussions? And do the officials believe that the use of such a channel could endanger American personnel? Spoiler alert, yes, it could endanger American personnel, and it seems like it already almost did. Brian Hughes, the spokesman for the National Security Council, responded 2 hours later, confirming the veracity of the Signal group. Quote, this appears to be an authentic message chain, and we are reviewing how an inadvertent number was added to the chain. Hughes wrote, the thread is a demonstration of the deep and thoughtful policy coordination between senior officials. The ongoing success of the Houthi operation demonstrates that there were no threats to troops or national security other than the fact that you included a random number that you didn't even know. That's a threat right there. And also, the deep and thoughtful policy coordination is, by the way, a bunch of emojis and American fists and American flags. William Martin, a spokesperson for Vance, said that despite the impression created by the text, the vice president is fully aligned with the president, even though J.D. Vance was saying, literally verbatim, hey, I'll keep this behind closed doors, but I kind of differ with the president. But oh, of course, publicly, it's just, he was saying that publicly he's going to act like he agrees, and now they're doing that exact thing publicly. Quote, the vice president's first priority is always making sure that the president's advisors are adequately briefing him, blah, blah, blah. Again, J.D. Vance said in that text, I will be aligned with the president publicly, and now they're doing that and acting like we're not dumb enough to realize. I have never seen a breach quite like this, writes Jeffrey Goldberg. It is not uncommon for national security officials to communicate on Signal, but the app is used primarily for meeting planning and other logistical matters, not for detailed and highly confidential discussions of pending military action. And of course, I've never heard of an instance in which a journalist has been invited to such a discussion before the strikes happen. I'm going to leave it at that. I'll include this article in the description so you can send it to your MAGA family members. It's incredibly interesting. I love all of you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.